Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. 16 years ago in November 2000, a feisty woman named Irom Sharmila began a fast unto death after 10 civilians were killed by the Assam Rifles at a bus stop near Imphal airport. Irom began a long, hard fight against the controversial Armed Forces Special Powers Act or AFSPA, which gives sweeping powers to the army in Manipur and in Jammu and Kashmir, where too there has been a long-standing demand for its revocation. So when, days earlier, Irom suddenly declared that she would end her fast and join mainstream politics, it came as a shock to many of her own supporters and even her family. Today, Irom burst into tears as she licked some honey to break her fast. "This is my life," she said. "I'm not a goddess. I want to be Chief Minister of Manipur to make a positive difference." Well, what will be the impact of Irom Sharmila's decision now that she's decided to join mainstream politics? Is that something that will fundamentally change the way she is, for instance, looking at this protest against the Armed Forces Special Powers Act? Beena Lakshmi Nepram, author and human rights activist, here in the studio with us. Chishalai Bhattacharjee, author and senior journalist. Bablu Lotangbam, activist who's close to Irom Sharmila, someone who has been a close friend of hers for many, many years. And Nalin Kohli of the BJP joining us as well today. Bablu, to you first. What was that moment like when you saw Irom licking that honey off her hand as she broke that fast? You could see those tears coming down her face. You've been with her throughout this entire time. What did you feel at that moment?
You know what? I think this was a lost opportunity. We are looking forward to this moment if the Prime Minister of India would have come and given this first honey to her. But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. It happens slightly different, in fact, very different from the way we thought. So the 16 years of satyagraha, the 16 years of hunger strike seem to have affected very little in terms of changing a policy of the country. For us, living in Manipur, and for that matter, for the whole of Northeast or in Kashmir, it is a question of our right to life, the most fundamental of human rights. And the fight will continue. Sharmila vowed to fight this in a different strategy. So we will join Irom Sharmila and fight this out to ensure that the most basic of all human rights, the right to life of the people, are respected, and Armed Forces Special Powers Act is consigned to the flames of history.
Well, very strongly said by you there. Nalin Kohli, very strongly there said by Bablu, saying that it was a lost opportunity. It should have been the Prime Minister who should have made a gesture and should have been there to help Irom break her fast. What do you think, Nalin?
I have three comments to make.
Sure.
The first is that yes, any story of any person working for any cause and doing it in a peaceful manner, in a non-violent manner, has to be celebrated, even if the cause doesn't finally materialize. And I think her will, her grit to having done it for so long has to be lauded. The second is about what Mr. Bablu said. It's a political comment. Once you have basically made a political plan, then to demand the presence of anybody else on a political platform is not the correct approach. Least of all the Prime Minister of India, who once he becomes the Prime Minister has a non-political function too. When he goes to political rallies, he addresses politically. Otherwise, he's that executive who runs the country on a non-political, a-partisan manner, caring for every Indian. He doesn't distinguish between that. The third is the comment about right to life. It's an important comment. It's a celebrated thing. That's the basic fundamental of any civilized society. And that's one of the hallmarks of any constitution. But the right to life also exists when the reverse happens. When a militant shoots down an innocent, that also brings out the right to life, which we are seeing in the violent world that we live in. This particular act is not an act born out of pleasure. This is out of a situation that's there. Now, the Northeast has its own set of problems. Other states also do. It's something that if we can bring normalcy, everyone would like to move it out. Because the army is not supposed to be in the civilian areas. It's supposed to be on the borders. It's only when, for whatever reasons, the state machinery of law and order fails that you need to go for the extreme of bringing the army in. And they, therefore, in a civilian area require some protection. But whenever the armed forces or anyone is found to have done anything which is not in consonance to their duty, it could be the innocent killing of a person, irresponsible firing, even any kind of molestation, then the highest courts of the land also have held them to be guilty. So I think to look at it from one perspective, someone is entitled to do it, but the complete picture is equally important.
Well, the interesting thing would be, and because this isn't so much a debate about AFSPA, Bina, as it is really about Irom Sharmila's fight, and the fact that now she's moving to mainstream politics. What do you think that does for that fight? Because there are arguments both for and against AFSPA, which are there; they have their own place. But what about the fact that she's moving into the mainstream world? Do you think that's a good step?
It's not about mainstream or upstream or downstream. It's about her sudden decision saying that she would like to break her fast, which she did today at a very historic moment, and deciding to live a life, to struggle it out there. Though, as Tamu Bablu also said, it has been 16 years of iconic struggle, unparalleled in the history of the world. And her struggle has brought to light that we are still a nation in the making, that our democracy is still not complete. To go back to Mr. Nalin Kohli, in fact, the Bharatiya Janata Party in the manifesto in Manipur elections last time said that they will repeal AFSPA in their manifesto. So I have met Mr. Kiran Rijiju many times, but it's different when political parties come in power. Suddenly they espouse the policy of the earlier policymakers too. So right now for us, I have been working with her for the last 5 to 6 years, asking her to change strategy of her fast, because even Mahatma Gandhi, the votary who used fast to get the British out of India, used fast as a means to an end. So
this is the right decision.
It's the right decision to break her fast. But how she did it is the big question mark. That she should have consulted her own family members when not, in fact, it would be the most ideal. Not the Prime Minister of India, but their own mother feeding.
That's interesting,
her,
Kishalai, because you'll give us perspective on that. Like what Bina just said, it's true that her own family seems to have been quite taken aback by this and is not entirely supportive of this.
Yeah, which is shocking. Irom decided on her own to sit on the fast. She did not consult either Bina or Prime Minister or Bablu, anybody. And that time nobody knew her. Nobody knew her. She came to Malom Bazaar, and when she sat out there, the people of Malom did not even want her to sit on there on the fast. She was absolutely alone. Just a couple who came across the road were professors who came across and gave her a green shawl. That is how she started her fast. So I think she's in complete liberty to decide when to call off the fast. By about 2010, Sharmila had actually become very tired. She was exhausted. She had started speaking publicly and telling people. I had met her also, and that she said that she wants to be she is a normal human being. She said, I don't want to be a poster girl. Don't make me into an icon. I want to, eat, live, fall in love, get married normally. So she maintains that, and she was completely coherent. She knew exactly what was happening everywhere, and everybody thought that that we could. I think a lot of people really opened their dukan around her, and I think they are feeling a little threatened that dukan is going to shut down.
No, that's rubbish. No. This rhetoric of people trying to benefit from her is complete rubbish. You're talking about people, rights activists who really try to ensure that she gets the justice please do not decry that like this.
It's not everybody, but there are a lot, and there are obviously.
No, what kind of dukans? Tell me which dukans. I mean, really. People like Tamu Bablu,
who piggybacked on her protest. People basically who piggybacked on that protest.
How many? Hardly.
She was on a jail ward out there.
Which
she
are the
was
people?
in a jail ward fasting for the rest of us. But I think what we need to celebrate tonight, rather than going into that, because that becomes a debate really, is what Sharmila set out to achieve. In her own words, maybe to repeal the act, that may not have happened. But I think she has already achieved. That is the narrative of AFSPA against human rights.
But it's not over yet.
It's not over yet. And Nalin Kohli, it's interesting because I think I saw a comment today by someone in the BJP who said, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, who said that there's a lesson in this for Kashmiri separatists as well. And the two are very different situations. But Irom Sharmila hasn't given up her fight against AFSPA. And she feels that she can do it in a different way through an elected role. So it's not exactly that she's in fact far from it. She's not backing down on her principles and beliefs.
I'll make a few points again.
Yeah.
The first is that, as I said, anybody who goes on a non-violent method to protest on anything or on a certain ideal, that is something that democracy permits, and we must celebrate it. Kishli has raised a point that can't be ignored. We've seen the same thing that happened with the Anna movement. What Anna Hazare did, what has come out of it, And yes, people do have their interests, they may come around it, but that's a separate story. The third part to it is with regard to ASPA and the BJP. As I mentioned, in a democracy, you would like to ideally not have a situation where you bring the army or the armed forces into a civilian area. It's only as the last resort for certain reasons that happen that you'd bring it there.